And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Strategy Show. It is Thursday, September 30th. I am Josh Engelman. I am joined by Adam Scher. We are here to break down a very easy 9-game MLB slate for today. Easy in that it's only 9 games, not that the slate is any easier than it normally is. It might be. As long as Rich Hill isn't 97% owned, we're going to be okay. Before we get started, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Shout out to Jock Market for being the presenting sponsor of this show. We'll talk a little bit about Jock Market in the future. But for now, Adam, how are you?
I'm good. Kind of nice, I guess, to get a change. You know, I liked those 15 and 13 game slates, but that was several days in a row. So nice to get back to 9 games. Ready for the weekend, going on vacation. Football starts, or not starts. Football comes back. So pretty good mood.
Yeah, it's going to be good. When do you actually leave?
Saturday.
Okay. I wish I were taking a vacation, but I'm basically on vacation right now because my wife has been gone since Saturday, and I have just been living the bachelor life of
I'm on a
very
permanent
little.
vacation.
Yeah, it's a good time. I'm not going to lie. It's fun. But we've got DFS to talk about. We've got football tonight, which I am excited to play. I really enjoy Showdown. Probably not going to catch too many snaps of Bengals Jags. Doesn't seem to be the type of game that I'm going to care all that much about, but we'll see what's going on. Who knows where the day will take me.
Got to split those Jamar Chase best ball shares.
You got a bunch?
I got even more Burrow, I think, but good amount of Chase.
Okay. I hope you don't have a ton of Jags because I don't think that's going to be going well so far.
I have a good amount of Jones.
Robinson, I guess, and Jones is sort of okay.
Yeah, Jones has been good. I have like no Robinson. I have a good amount of Chark, but he was cheap, so whatever.
Okay. Well, let's just dive into it. If you can hit that like button as we get started, that would be very helpful. We are coming down the home stretch. I said that as the same way that our friend of the program, Ben Raza, would have said it. Not too many days left in this old baseball season. Taking a look, since we have time, taking a look at the odds. 82% that the Yankees make the playoffs, 76 for the Red Sox, still 23 for the Jays. Astros basically have boxed out everything. They have a 99.9% chance. I can't imagine what would have to happen for them to miss the playoffs at this point. Mariners still alive. Didn't know the Mariners were 89 and 70 until right now. And I don't mean like I didn't know they were 89 and 70. I didn't know they were anything at all.
Yeah.
In playoff contention, I guess would be the better way to say it. And then on the NL side, basically everything is set in stone in terms of teams, but Dodgers and Giants could potentially flip-flop the division. Giants leaders in the clubhouse as of right now. And I guess the Cardinals finally lost, right?
Yeah, they lost yesterday.
All right. Well, at least we don't have to listen to anybody tell us there's like some narrative about how you can't fade the Cardinals on a win streak. All righty. Orioles,
yeah,
4
it's weird that you don't win games when you run out of lineup with Matt Carpenter batting cleanup.
In 2021.
Yeah. Shows how much the Cardinals cared about that win streak, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, the moment that you're clinching, it's just like, okay, it doesn't matter whether we win 17, 18, 22 straight. Just get to the playoffs. Could be worse. You could go around punching walls and breaking your hand.
I feel bad for him. That sucks.
I don't feel bad for him, but
I mean, I feel bad for him in the sense that he punched a wall. Who cares? And it ended his season.
I just can't imagine being angry enough to punch a wall 7 games up in the sense. I just wouldn't care right now.
I'm curious more so what was going on, because it was during or after the celebration, something pissed him off enough that he punched the wall. So I'm more just curious about what the story was. But I mean, it sucks. These guys work so hard to get to where they're at. They clinch, and now you're it should be like a coming out party for this guy that we've all enjoyed, seeing the pitching ninja stuff all year long, because he's just filthy, and it really should be a national coming out party, and now he's going to miss it.
Sucks. You know what else sucks?
Max Scherzer last night.
That's probably true too. No, the Baltimore Orioles hosting the Boston Red Sox. 4.1 run implied total for the Orioles. 5.9 for the Red Sox. Alex Wells, Nick Pivetta. Doesn't appear to be an Alex Wells day. Certainly appears to be a Nick Pivetta day. Projected for 31% ownership at this moment. I got him at 23% of my sims, so certainly one of the better options you can get to. Feels like we're just saying the exact same thing every game in this series. We're not going to play the Orioles pitcher. We are going to play the Red Sox pitcher, and the Red Sox bats are the best stack of the day.
Pretty much. They've disappointed, at least to some extent, the last two games, but that obviously has no bearing on this game. It's pretty similar again. You're getting tons and tons of ownership going to the Red Sox. They do the one thing that makes it a little bit different is we do have 4 less games today than we had the last 2 days. So it just is going to make it a little bit, well, it's kind of twofold. The ownership, the raw ownership on Boston may end up being a little bit higher just because there's less teams to choose from. But right now it looks pretty much where it was recently. We have Renfroe at 24% on DraftKings leading the way. Most of the other guys that you would want, in the 20% range as well. So that's high, but it's not like you're talking 35, 40% ownership or anything crazy like that. But it does sort of make the Red Sox a little bit more appealing as a 5-man stack. Now that there's only 18 total teams to choose from instead of 26, it just, makes it, there's, less teams that can, the field is smaller, yes. So it's just,
thanks, man.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of makes it a little bit easier to get to them. Whereas, the last couple of slates, it's been, man, I think the Red Sox are in a great spot, but I have a hard time getting to their bats because they're so popular and there's so many teams to get to. Now there's fewer teams. So the Red Sox do relatively look a little bit better. Right now in the top stack tool, we have them with a 19% chance of being the top stack, basically 2 times as likely as any other team, 20.8% aggregate ownership. So slightly overowned, but nothing crazy, not as much as we've seen the last couple of days. So the way things look right now, still a team where you're going to want to be very, very, aware of the ownership of the other players in your lineup, but less likely that I just completely get away from this team in tournaments than it was the last couple of days.
Yeah, they were pretty clearly my number one stack. It's not particularly close. There's no one even in sniffing distance. So I would like to get to a bunch of Boston here against Alex Wells. I don't think that we need to talk about Alex Wells at all. Do you want to talk about the Orioles bats? Is the slate small enough that going against the opposite side of the Nick Pivetta ownership is interesting to you?
Not really. It's kind of the same thing, I guess, that we had said about the Orioles on recent slates, where you can build a very, very strong team around them. The issue on this particular slate is there's not really pitching that I'm like dying to pay up for. The most expensive pitcher on DraftKings is Robbie Ray. He's facing the Yankees. You have Bieber at 9,800 coming off of a start where he threw 34 pitches. So it's not like I'm really looking to pay that salary. Tough matchup for McCullers. And then you're down to a $9,300 Joe Ryan. Like, he's the 4th most expensive pitcher on the slate. So I think the pitch of play some cheap Orioles, load up with pitching and one-offs around them is pretty difficult when there's not really pitching to load up with. So that makes it tough. I think if I am going to Baltimore, I'd be most interested in just probably more so mini stacking, trying to just get a home run or two against Pivetta. He's a pretty good pitcher overall, but he does give up some power. You do have some power at the top of this lineup. Obviously, Mullins, Mountcastle, Hayes, Mancini, those guys are all fine, but not really a team I'm looking to get to.
All righty. Who is your favorite Red Sox hitter for today?
Renfroe.
Yeah, agreed. He's the guy.
I think Dahlbeck's the best value.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. $3,600 first baseman. That'll work on a 9-gamer. Favorite Orioles bat?
Mullins.
2 for 2 as far as I'm concerned. I have nothing
really,
else here.
It still feels so weird talking about Mullins with the Orioles because the team is so bad, but he is legitimately like amazing.
Yeah, like I'm a fan. Grades out really well today too, just from a DFS perspective. Leadoff spot. It's all good.
I think everyone should just stop switch hitting.
Well, you know what would make his career really thrive?
Playing on a good team.
Yeah. Not playing for the Orioles.
Not being under contract with the Orioles for the next half decade.
Yeah. I mean, depending on how much money
I think,
at least. If you get the Chris Davis deal, then I'll happily live in Baltimore for a couple of years.
I think Mullins ends up being, or at least, his contract at least is in the range where he could legitimately be the star on the next like good Orioles team.
Yeah, that's fair. Speaking of stars,
if he does what most Orioles players do, he'll just drop off completely.
Yes, that is way more likely. Speaking of stars, like actual stars, Blue Jays and Yankees, 4.5 run implied total for the Blue Jays, 4 for the Yankees. Robbie Ray and Corey Kluber. Kluber unowned at 8,200, just probably not going to go deep enough in this game. And it is still the Blue Jays. Robbie Ray, on the other hand, 35% owned against the Yankees at 10K. Let's just start here. How do we manage Robbie Ray on a day like today against all of this right-handed power from New York?
It's a really, really dangerous spot. Ray gives up power. Granted, his overall numbers this year are skewed because of pitching in very, very pitcher or hitter friendly parks before they were allowed back in Toronto, but he still allowed 1.39 home runs per nine. Even if you drop that off a little bit, this is always a pitcher that has allowed some power. 163 expected ISO to righties this year, but he does also have a 32.6% strikeout percentage. So the upside is there. You only have a 3.9 implied run total for the Yankees. A lot of it ends up coming back to ownership. And right now on DraftKings, you have 35% going to Ray. On FanDuel, only 8% at 10,800. I think he's fine on DraftKings. He still gives you a really high ceiling. He's got the best strikeout percentage on the slate of everyone not named Shane Bieber at 32.5%. It's still a really, really dangerous spot. He's 35% owned. There's not a lot of margin for error at that price tag either, because, if he scores like 18 points or something, you're going to wish you had gone somewhere else, most likely. On FanDuel, though, I think he looks like a great tournament option because you're getting a ton of ownership going to McCullers, you're getting a ton of ownership going to Hill at a completely different price range. You're getting a good amount going to McCullers, though, at 9,700. I think that getting all the way up to Robbie Ray on FanDuel makes a lot of sense. On DraftKings, it's more so, I think he's still a good play, but it'll be more in like low owned stacks than just jamming Robbie Ray into every lineup I make or anything like that.
You're in agreement, no Kluber, correct?
Yeah, brutal matchup. Not a particularly good pitcher at this point anyway.
I should start with the Blue Jays, but I think that we have to start with the Yankees here. How interested are you in New York bats? One, just because they're the Yankees, and two, because 35% of the field has Robbie Ray.
So one other thing, I meant to mention it when we talked about Ray, but now works also. Pay attention to this Yankees lineup. Joey Gallo was pinch hit for late in yesterday's game by Gary Sanchez. I think Gallo's questionable for tonight's game. Voit hurt himself yesterday. You could get a pretty watered down Yankees lineup with no Gallo and no Voit tonight, potentially. If that happens, clearly it looks better for Ray, and it also looks worse for the Yankees. So if you get the standard Yankees lineup where you have Joey Gallo, you have Luke Voit, I do think that they're a good tournament stack just because there is so much power. They're not getting much ownership at all. And you get the added benefit of negatively correlating with 35% of the field on DraftKings. It's not a stack that's going to come through all that often. You're talking about the likely Cy Young winner in the American League. I know Greg, if he's on a show at some point today, will harp on how lucky Robbie Ray has been all season long, but still a really, really good pitcher, whether you think he's the best pitcher in the American League or not. It's just not a stack that's super likely to succeed. But when it does, it puts you in a very, very good position to make some money.
I have them 12th, but I have them as my number 4 leverage stack. I'm actually running a big 5-man crunch right now. And I'm just going to wait until this is over towards later in the show to see who's actually popping for this, because I really don't know how it's going to play out, but I assume getting to some Yankees is going to happen considering the way that I've been getting to them earlier this week. What about Toronto, who I have 7th for today, and as my number 1 leverage stack with only George Springer north of 2% ownership? Do you want to go to Toronto?
Kind of surprised they're not getting more ownership because Kluber really hasn't been great this year. His strikeout stuff is okay, 25%, but a 10% walk percentage, 4.29 xFIP. It's a team that doesn't strike out, has tons of power, basically top to bottom in this lineup. 4.7 implied run total is, certainly respectable. I guess the biggest issue with Toronto is that 1 through 5, they're really expensive. Then it drops off, but so does the quality of the lineup once you get past like Corey Dickerson. Or I guess once you get to Corey Dickerson, but he's really cheap. So I guess it can be kind of hard to get to them salary wise, but it's also not a slate where I'm dead set on paying up for pitching. You have some very good mid-range options. We already talked about Pivetta being one of them. And if you're going to a team as low owned as Toronto, there's no ownership concerns going to someone like Pivetta. So I like getting to Toronto the way things look right now.
I like getting to this game in general. I'm certainly going to have Robbie Ray. I want to have Toronto, and I'm going to have Yankees on the opposite side of it. It's a very, very appealing game and incredibly scary. So I assume Corey Kluber will end up being the best option out of the game. Favorite Blue Jays bat?
Obviously Guerrero, but factoring in salary and probable ownership, I as usual, I love Lourdes Gurriel.
Okay. Honestly, the way that Semion's hitting dongs a $5,600 2-hole second baseman doesn't feel too shabby either.
He's like, it's Salvador Perez-esque, where it's just like, how is it not getting talked about more that a second baseman is just like hitting a million home runs?
I think he just broke the second base record yesterday or 2 days ago or something.
He's like mid-40s, right?
Yeah, I think he's 46.
44.
Okay. Whew. Bonkers. Favorite Yankees bet?
On a complete side note, it makes me laugh because I remember when he came up with the White Sox, he had played. One of my best friends got drafted and like briefly played in the minors before he tore his ACL, but they had played like against each other at some point. I don't know if it was like collegiately or in Arizona League or whatever. And when he came up to the White Sox, I remember being at a bar with my friend and him making a comment like it kind of frustrated him because like when they played together or against each other or whatever, Semien just wasn't that good. And it was one of those where it's just like shit. Like if he made it, like I probably could have. And then now you have Semien just being an absolute monster.
Yeah. You should still friends with him right now.
I mean, we don't keep in touch, but like we're on good terms.
I'd send that text and be like, "You still think you're better than Marcus Semien?"
I didn't hear your actual question though.
It was about favorite Yankees bat.
Oh, Judge/Stanton.
That'll work. Astros and Rays. 4.8 run implied total for the Stros. 3.9 for the Rays. Lance McCullers and Colin McHugh. No one on McHugh at 9K today. Not surprised there. McCullers 29% owned. He came out of my sim at 28%. Seems pretty spot on to me for Lance McCullers.
Yeah, I think it's really similar to me to the way I view Robbie Ray. I think McCullers should get ownership because this is a pretty thin pitching slate. He's obviously one of the most talented pitchers, has a 27.3% strikeout percentage, 3.68 xFIP. He's facing a Tampa Bay team that strikes out a lot. On the other hand, he's facing a Tampa Bay team that hits the hell out of the ball. One of the best WRC pluses in baseball this year. McCullers does walk too many guys. He can get himself in trouble, both in terms of pitch count and just putting too many guys on base. So the ownership makes sense. I'm sure I will get to him because there's a lack of alternatives. But at the same time, I'm not super confident in him here. It's not like you're getting any sort of pricing discount for the difficult matchup. So I'm on McCullers, but I also like the idea of going to Tampa.
So I have Tampa Bay 18th. I don't have them in the same sort of tier as the Yankees, which kind of surprises me. I sort of expected them to be there.
For what it's
worth, are you more likely to get the Yankees bats or Rays bats?
I think it's really close. A lot would depend on the Yankees lineup. But I mean, for like on the top stacks tool, we have Tampa Bay at 5.1, Toronto at 4.7, Yankees at 4.2. I think Toronto should be higher, but I think Tampa Bay and the Yankees are very, very similar.
Are you on FanDuel or do you need to hit F5? Either way, you're not on the most updated data, I don't think.
I was on DraftKings, but I hadn't refreshed.
Okay.
Okay, so that looks
not that like anything has dramatically changed, but
no, it actually did exactly what I said it should.
Okay.
Toronto,
well,
Tampa Bay.
There you go. Perfect. Let's talk Astros bats here, I think. I don't find them super appealing, but I'm kind of surprised that I don't with a 4.8 run implied total. I only have them 13th, and I don't totally understand why.
It's not a great spot. I mean, it's a bullpen game, but at the same time, relatively high implied run total, really, really good offense. You most likely have Michael Brantley in the lineup, which helps you lower the total salary. You know, even though he's not the highest upside hitter, he's still a very good hitter that at his price grades out as a good option. So the biggest thing for me with Houston in a spot like this is the ownership, because I'm not really confident in the matchup. I don't love, the bullpen games against Tampa or, McHugh plus bullpen game, whatever you want to call it. But right now we have 3.5% aggregate ownership going to Houston. They have the 5th highest top stack percentage on the slate. They are expensive. It's another team that's been pretty difficult to get to lately, but they also are going to be a lot easier to get to tonight, I think, when you can use guys like Pivetta and Hill, and you're just, the opportunity cost of pitcher isn't quite as high as it normally is.
This is a hard slate as we're working our way through it. Just a lot of really weird spots. All of the Blue Jays and Yankees. This whole game too
it's one of those slates where I love playing them and I hate talking about them, because it's just like I feel like I don't have anything intelligent to say. It's just like a lot of, oh well, this is a tough spot, but the hitters are good, so play some of them. But like, there's nothing. You
should be pretty used to that by now.
Yeah, but normally at least I can like bullshit my way and sound intelligent. And on slates like this, like I just sound like an idiot, because it's just like, oh yeah, Blue Jays are good, Yankees are good, Astros are good. But like, it's really just that all of these teams, their ceiling is so high. So even when their median projection isn't high enough to drive up their ownership, they become really, really good tournament plays. And so I like playing those slates because they're fun. Like, you get a bunch of really good hitters at low ownership. They're hard to talk about because like there's no stat that I could point to and say like, this is why I think the Yankees are going to have success. They're probably not, but they're still like, good tournament plays. And the same goes for Houston.
My takeaway from all of that is I think it's incredible you think you ever sound intelligent. Favorite Astros bat?
Value-wise, I think it's Brantley.
Yeah.
Hitter-wise, I'll go Alvarez.
Is he having a really bad year?
I don't know. I was actually about to look that up because it seems like
I feel like he's permanently like 3,500.
Wait, are you talking about Brantley?
Brantley, yes.
Oh no, he's having a phenomenal year.
How is his price always like sub 4K and the rest of this team is in the fives? I mean, I guess that like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean he doesn't hit for power. He has 8 home runs. He has a 124 ISO, but he's got a 124 WRC plus, 348 WOBA.
Yeah, where'd the power go?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he was never a real power hitter. His highest
176 and 191 the past 2 seasons.
Yeah, I'll say his highest ever was 191.
Yeah. He needs to get on whatever Semion's on. Who's your favorite Rays bet?
Wow. Position and everything included.
Tough spot. Choi, maybe.
For guys having phenomenal years.
Yeah. I don't have anything else for Astros and Rays.
Me neither.
All right, Adam, you can go fill a coffee or get a water or something. Daily schedule. This is everything we've got coming up for the rest of the day. There are 8 more shows that we will run live today. Coming up immediately after this, 11 a.m., NFL Strategy Show Matchups Edition. Laffy, Matt Savoca breaking it all down. Awesemo Odds Betting Show, 1 p.m. with Eitan and Ben. Eitan, double dipping, doing the Jock Market NFL show at 2 o'clock with Greg. Greg then double dipping, doing the Yahoo NFL show at 3 o'clock with Adam Kaufman. We get the MMA Strategy Show with Jason Floyd and Pete the Heat Rogers at 4. Adam will be back at 5:30 for MLB Live Before Lock. Laffy will be back at 6:30 for NFL Deeper Dive with Ben. And then NFL Live Before Lock, Eric and Neil Orfield taking you all the way up until the lock of Jags and Bengals. We have so much content today. Plus, free content on Awesemo.com. MLB ownership. If you're watching this show, then you can understand what you're getting there. So ownership is free. Plus our NFL Showdown rankings. It's a big day at Awesemo.com. Moving it on. Mets and Marlins. 4.4 run implied total for the Mets. 3.3 for the Marlins. Dick Mountain is 48% owned today at 7K against the Marlins. Edward Cabrera just 5% owned at 5,600, which I don't think is too crazy. Let's start with Rich Hill. What are you going to do with a guy that's in half of the lineups today?
It's so similar to the Taijuan Walker spot yesterday so for one, he ended up not being as popular as basically everyone, us and others, projected him to be. I think people just, to some extent were scared of Taijuan Walker. Maybe you get the same thing here where, from a projection standpoint, you would assume that Rich Hill is just massively the by a wide margin, the highest owned guy. Maybe that does just naturally come in a little bit lower because it is still Rich Hill. He's not really the most exciting pitcher to roster, but I do expect him to get plenty of ownership. And it's just a similar situation where on the one hand, you have a just absolutely garbage Miami team. It makes it a very high upside spot for Hill. He threw 97 pitches his last time out. The Marlins have a 3.4 implied run total. Feel free to play a bunch of Hill, especially where you have lower owned stacks. If you're playing a bunch of Red Sox, for example, you probably don't want Pivetta plus Hill plus Red Sox because it's just going to make it very tough for you to make a lot of money when you're right. And obviously when you're wrong, you're not going to make money anyway. So that's really the only consideration there. I mean, Hill's not a great pitcher, but he's not priced like he needs to be. He struck out 22.6% of hitters this year, 4.63 xFIP, but he's only 7K. He's fully stretched out. From a projection standpoint, there's no real reason not to play Rich Hill. It purely just comes down to what does the ownership of the rest of your lineup look like? Does Rich Hill's ownership make it so it's going to be very difficult for you to win a tournament with that given lineup or not?
Unquestionably, Rich Hill going to be in a cash lineup?
I would think so. I mean, I haven't built one, so I hate saying that, but just looking at the slate, I would think so. Like, I'm not even dead set. Like, there's nobody at the top that I'm dead set on getting to in cash. If I get to Robbie Ray, that's fine. I'm certainly not going to Bieber. McCullers would be fine. I don't feel great about it. I think there's a pretty good chance that cash ends up being like Pivetta plus Hill and all the bats.
Yeah, certainly possible. There are only 4 options from a cash perspective tonight: Ray, McCullers, Pivetta, Hill.
I think you could throw Ryan in there.
Okay. It's a little bit lower owned. I like him about as much as I like McCullers, so that it'll be an interesting talking point, but I think the public's going to be a little bit more concentrated on the others.
Yeah, and I meant it more so as like I could see some build where you end up with Ryan, but he's also like, yeah, he's behind those other guys. He's just, I guess it wouldn't be absolutely nuts.
Sure. Let's talk Mets bats, I guess. Number 9 stack for me, 17th in leverage. They are pulling some ownership here. Actually, you know what? Before we get to Mets bats, are you interested in Edward Cabrera as a paydown option at 5,600? He is at 5% ownership. I did get a little bit more than that.
I think he's at that price. I think he's okay. He has good stuff. He's considered a good pitching prospect. We have him with an 11.5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. The Mets offense, hasn't been good this year. It's weird. I mean, they have hitters in their lineup that have a track record of being good, but they have not been. Cabrera hasn't been good so far in the major leagues. Only a 20.6% strikeout percentage, 15.9% walk percentage as a starter with the Marlins so far, 5.49 xFIP. But at 5,600 and low ownership, you're not really playing the game of, I think it's very, very likely he does well here. You're just kind of playing the game of, is he talented enough to have a big start at this price point? And I think the answer is yes. So certainly not someone that I expect to just be jamming into my lineups left and right, especially when you do have cheap pitchers that are in good, that look really good, like Hill and Pivetta. It's not like it's difficult to find cheap pitching today, but I don't have any issue getting there if I need to save salary, just because I think the upside's still there.
The Mets are the current second biggest negative leverage stack on the slate. They're also my second biggest negative leverage stack on the slate. I'm in lockstep with the public for right now. Well, I'm in lockstep with our top stacks.
Are you on FanDuel?
No.
They're the 4th biggest negative leverage stack on DraftKings.
The Mets?
Yes.
-4 leverage?
-1.4.
Are you on FanDuel?
Yep.
What the fuck, man? How do you mock me for the one thing you're doing wrong? See, I told you you're never intelligent. Okay.
Yep, man, you're crushing it. You got it.
So I'd love to get your thoughts on the Mets. We're going to use DraftKings salaries for this baseline conversation, so feel free to talk about the Mets if you'd like. I assume you're going to go straight into the Marlins or the Yankees, or I don't know, like the New York Giants football team.
Joe Judge is an idiot, but other than that, I still really like the price tag on Michael Conforto. He's 2,800. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, he's actually not even having a bad year.
2,800 totally sounds like his FanDuel salary.
Oh. Yeah, it does.
I was like, come on, man.
Yeah, I mean, he was 2,900 yesterday, so I knew that one was right. But he's not even having a bad year against right-handed pitching this season. He's got I think 192. It's not loading for me, but yesterday it was 192. Then he homered, so it's probably even higher. 192 expected ISO against right-handed pitching. 2,800 just doesn't make any sense, especially against a pitcher like Cabrera that hasn't been good at the major league level to this point. Nimmo is struggling this year, but he's still cheap at 3,200. Alonso sub 4K. Baez at 4K. I mean, this team has tons of upside just based on their overall, track record. Obviously, it hasn't really been there this year, but I'm still interested. They are getting ownership, like you said, though. Curious to see how much of that is strictly Conforto. Conforto 13.5, Nimmo 13, Alonso 10, everyone else 7.5 or less. So it's still, as a 5-man stack, a team that you're not getting crazy, ownership across all 5. And it is a pretty high upside spot. So I like the Mets, not going crazy on them, but Conforto in particular, I think is one of the better outfield options.
What do we do with Marlins bats if Rich Hill's 50% owned?
Probably still not roster them. They're so bad. I mean, $2,700 De La Cruz is okay, I guess. Brinson at 2,100 I could get on board with. I thought I would get to them yesterday against Walker, and I didn't. I kind of just, in theory, it makes sense to me. I just doubt that I get there. I think there's just going to be, especially the thing is on a slate like this too. Yeah, the negative correlation is nice, but we've already talked about how the Yankees aren't getting ownership, the Jays aren't getting ownership, the Astros aren't getting ownership. Why am I playing the Marlins at basically the same ownership as those offenses?
Yeah, it does become pretty tricky there. Lewin Diaz at the flat minimum 2K. That's a DraftKings price, by the way. Happy to get there. Showed up in 3% of Sims. I will never fault anybody for going to the Marlins if we know Rich Hill is 50% owned. Like, I get it in a large field GPP. It's going to pay you off from time to time. There just seems to be, like you said, a couple other options that are the same sort of scenario, only you don't have to take a shit offense. You could take a real baseball team.
Yeah, like I think if your strategy going into baseball is just, I'm going to stack for the entire season, I'm going to stack against every, 40+% owned pitcher in large field tournaments, that strategy probably makes you money, even though you're stacking some bad offenses. It's just that, the few times that you hit, you're pretty likely to get paid off well. I don't typically take that as contrarian a strategy. So I think it's one that it's fine, but it's not, if that's not your typical strategy, I'm certainly not looking at the Marlins today and going out of my way to get to them.
Exactly. I have nothing else for this game.
No, me neither.
Braves and Phillies. 4.7 run implied total for the Braves, 4 for the Phils. It's Ian Anderson and Kyle Gibson. And both guys are sort of just under-owned-ish. I don't know. They're both at 10%. Anderson's 8,400. Kyle Gibson's 7,800. I just felt like both guys were going to pull a little bit more ownership, but it's just so much of it is going to Pivetta and Rich Hill at the bottom that this whole section seems to be getting squeezed a little bit. Do you like Anderson or Gibson more or less than the public?
Anderson in particular, because I think he does have that strikeout upside that can put you in a really good spot at low ownership. It's not a very good strikeout matchup. The Phillies lineup just doesn't have strikeouts in it. But for the season, Anderson has a 23.8% strikeout percentage. That's also a little bit lower than probably his true strikeout percentage because he had those back-to-back starts coming back from injury where he struck out 0 hitters. So that's just going to drive it down artificially a little bit when, that's an anomaly. He's looked pretty good recently as far as strikeouts go. 9 against Miami in 5 innings, 7 and 5 2/3 against the Giants, 8 and 7 against Arizona. Seems like he's getting back on track. Reasonably priced at 8,400. It's not like you have to pay a premium for him. The Braves are still technically trying to make the playoffs. They have a 99.8% chance, 4.5 game lead on the Phillies. But point being, I don't think this is a game where they just, Yankee Anderson at 4 or 5 innings or anything like that. So I do like Anderson as long as the ownership stays down. It's not an ideal spot because of the Phillies' low strikeout percentage, but they do still have a 3.9 implied run total. For context, that is about the same as the Yankees against Ray. It's about the same as the Rays against McCullers. Both of those pitchers more expensive and pulling quite a bit more ownership. So I like Anderson here in tournaments. Not my favorite matchup, but I think the ownership is low enough.
I just finished off that crunch. I did get to your Orioles, so they seem to be the team du jour for me as of late.
I don't know why you like that team so much.
Neither do I. I must be copying in the FanDuel salaries or something.
The Jaren Jackson of baseball.
Man, the good old days.
Yeah.
Just remember how many times.
Why do I have 40% Jaren Jackson?
He's 1% owned. Oh man, we just didn't know. We didn't know, giving it away. Bats in this one, or did you touch on Gibson?
No, I didn't. Gibson's just sort of there for me. I understand that when you compare his ownership to Pivetta and to Hill, Hill's not going to beat Kyle Gibson 9. You wouldn't lay 9-1 odds on Rich Hill. You wouldn't offer someone 7-1 on Pivetta. They project better. It's a tough matchup for Gibson. He's not a very good strikeout pitcher. I don't like Gibson. I don't like the matchup. He is fine in lineups where like you have the Red Sox and Conforto and, the Mets or, the rest of the Mets or something like that, where like your hitters are popular and you need to save a little bit of money. That's fine, but not targeting Gibson.
Okay. Are you targeting bats on either side of this one?
The Braves are the Astros, are the Rays, are the Yankees, are the Jays. Only 3% aggregate ownership going to Atlanta against a pitcher that I don't think is that good. Gibson is good at getting ground balls. He's good at limiting power, only 0.73 home runs per 9, but only a 20.3% strikeout percentage this season. It just makes me really interested in going to an Atlanta team where you have so much power. These guys are going to put the ball in play. They're relatively expensive, Freeman, Albies, and Riley in particular, but decent price on Jorge Soler at 4,300. Adam Duvall's 4,700. You get a discount on Rosario at 3,400. So as a 5-man stack, it's not going to be that expensive. And then you also have a pretty bad Phillies bullpen behind Gibson. So you do get that added upside, just like we saw yesterday, where the Braves just piled on runs in the late innings. So I like them in tournaments. They're right up there with those other good offenses that are in tough spots.
The Braves 8th. I have the Phillies 14th. I think they both look okay in the crunch that I ran. Just in general, I did not get to Braves stacks. I did not get to Philly stacks. So I don't want to push them too hard. Yeah. I do like the Braves a little bit more than what this is showing up, but I just got to too many more teams instead of those two. So that's all I've got for this game.
Yeah, I'm not really interested in the Phillies. I do like the Braves.
All righty. MLB Strategy Show. That is the promo code that will get you an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. Covers everything that we have for all sports. Projections, ownership, premium slack, lineup builder, top stacks, top fighters, top golfers, top stacks again, top pitchers if you're interested. Top stacks again if you want to go to NHL. All sorts of top stack tools that exist here. But again, you use the promo code MLB Strategy Show. That's one gigantic word. That will get you 25% off your first week of Awesemo Plus. 4 more games here. Twins and Tigers. 4.9 run implied total for the Twins. 3.6 for the Tigers. Joe Ryan, Tariq Skubal. No one's going to Skubal. 16% of the field is going to Joe Ryan. I'd like to get a little bit more than that.
Yeah, I think that I don't know. So I guess I just hadn't refreshed this time. No, 12% going to Joe Ryan.
Yeah.
I thought you said 16.
Did it refresh again?
I don't know.
It was 15.6 before.
Okay, it's 12.7 now. Unless I'm just losing my mind. But either way, Joe Ryan is in the 12 to 15% ownership range. I think that's fine. The strikeout stuff is good. It's a good strikeout matchup. So far this year, what?
You are right.
Okay. So far this year, 32.1% strikeout percentage for Ryan with Minnesota. He posted very good strikeout numbers in the minors with Tampa, and then once he came over to the Twins as well. Not necessarily I'm a little concerned on how deep into the game he'll go. He threw 86 pitches last time. They pulled him at 5 innings. He had struck out 11. He was pulled after 5 innings 2 starts ago at 67 pitches. That was a game where he gave up 1 run. So I'm not super convinced that the Twins are interested in letting him go 7 innings, regardless of how he's pitching. If he's only going to go 5 innings, I know he scored 30 something DraftKings points his last time out, but you kind of have to keep your expectations in check as far as the ceiling goes for a guy at $9,300, but he is relatively low owned. He does have a good matchup against the Tigers. He is giving you a little bit of a salary discount in addition to the ownership discount off of guys like Ray and McCullers as well. So definitely like Joe Ryan here, just somewhat concerned about what the realistic ceiling looks like, given the fact that it seems like they are just going to throw him 5 innings.
In my crunch, I did get to Joe Ryan quite a bit more than that public number. Just projects pretty well in that area and just not pulling the same sort of ownership. That is appealing to me in a larger field GPP. I don't think that we need to touch on Skubal, but we probably do need to talk a little bit about the Minnesota Twins, the biggest negative leverage stack on the slate. How do you manage Minnesota?
So I did want to mention one thing on Skubal, just for anyone not aware. The reason that nobody is rostering him and that we're not talking about him is that the Tigers are treating him at this point the same way they're treating Casey Mize. He's just going 3 or 4 innings, throwing 40 to 50 pitches. So whereas earlier in the year, this would be a pretty good tournament spot because of Skubal's strikeout stuff. Here, you're just not expecting him to go deep enough into the game. So for the Minnesota bats, Skubal has been very volatile this year. Very, very good strikeout stuff, but also gives up plenty of power. 252 expected ISO to righties. You're getting, Buxton, Polanco, Donaldson, Garver, Rooker, Sano, all from the right side, all with power. So Minnesota looks good. Like you said, they are getting a lot of ownership. Looking individually, though, it's not that bad. Right now, we have Byron Buxton projected for 31% ownership on DraftKings. We have the next highest on Minnesota is Garver at 24%. Nobody else is higher than 17% for Polanco. So it's a team where you are getting ownership and your 5-man stack is going to be popular. But you can also just do something like skip Byron Buxton or, skip Mitch Garver. Or if you do want both of those guys, then you use someone like Kyle Gibson instead of, Pivetta, or you use Edward Cabrera or something like that. It's the aggregate ownership is being skewed a little bit by Buxton and Garver. So I don't think they're quite as over-owned as the top stacks tool suggests.
Interesting. Okay. They popped up pretty negatively for me in that crunch. I didn't get to a ton. It was more one-off stuff. Certainly didn't get to the Tigers, though, either. They are my number 16 stack. Do you see anything appealing for Detroit?
No, I liked them yesterday. They let me down, but I think Joe Ryan is a lot better than Michael Pineda. I think Akil Baddoo is pretty much always a good play when he's leading off at 4K. But other than that, I don't really see anything here.
All righty. Royals and Indians. 3.8 run implied total for the Royals, 4.7 for the Indians. Angel Zerpa going for Kansas City, he's 4K. Shane Bieber going for Cleveland, he's 9,800. Don't get the sense that Bieber's going deep into this one. So both pitchers, Bieber is unplayable to me unless you've seen something different. I don't get the sense that Zerpa is going all that deep in this game. I gave him 2 2/3, at which point I'm still not interested. So no pitching here.
Yeah, I don't have any interest in the pitching. I don't think there's any real need to go to a 4K pitcher here. Zerpa made 1 start at AAA this year through an inning and a third. He made 13 starts at AA, went 45 in the third innings, 8 starts at single A at high A, 41 and 2/3. I'm just not expecting him to go deep enough here. It's not a bad Indians offense. I don't think the price point is totally necessary. I'm good on pitching in this game.
Talk to me about this Indians offense. I've got them 6th. They are a team that's popping up for me a lot more in my crunch than I expected them to overall. I did get to quite a bit of Cleveland 5-man stacks in my most recent crunch.
Yeah, I think they look pretty good because you're getting a pitcher that just most likely isn't ready for the major leagues. He's thrown a total of 1 1/3 innings above AA in his career. He's thrown a total of 46 2/3 innings above high A in his career. Fangraphs has him as Kansas City's 10th ranked prospect. Maybe he ends up being good, but I doubt that he is right now. And the Indians give you a pretty nice combination of power and salary savings. Ramirez and Franmil Reyes are both expensive, but they have tons of power. You get a $2,200 Harold Ramirez, probably batting 5th. The bottom of the order is free with Mercado, Owen Miller, Yu Chang is cheap. Rosario is relatively inexpensive. So is Straw, leading off at 4,500. So it's just a stack where I think they're in a pretty good spot. I think that they are reasonably priced. The only hitters in the lineup that are really expensive are the ones that should be. So I think Cleveland looks pretty good.
Nice. We're on the same page there. Royals, on the other hand, probably not a team I'm going to be getting to a lot. Are you?
I didn't. I was reading something in chat. What did you say?
Royals?
Oh, yeah, no.
Okay, that works. I have nothing else for Royals and Indians.
Perez also left last game early, so you might lose him as well.
Okay.
After he homered, of course.
Let's give a shout out to the presenting sponsor of this show. That would be Jock Market. They have turned fantasy sports into a stock exchange. You don't have to wait till the end of the game to make money. You can sell off your shares immediately if you would like. Whether it's NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA contest, you pick up shares of players in the pregame IPO phase, and then you can buy, sell, or hold throughout all of the games until the slate locks. Head to the App Store, download the app, use the promo code Awesemo when signing up, get a $50 instant match deposit bonus, or up to a $50 instant match deposit bonus on that first deposit. This offer is exclusive to the Awesemo community, so make sure you're using that promo code when you sign up for Jock Market. And thank you again, Jock Market, for being the presenting sponsor. Let's close this bad boy out. 2 more to go. Giants and Diamondbacks, 4.9 run implied total for the Giants, 3.6 for the Diamondbacks. Scott Kazmir and Madison Bumgarner, they took the hot tub time machine to 2011 to have this game. Kazmir at 8% ownership, 6,200. Bumgarner 4% ownership at 6,300. This could be like an international league type game too at this point. Do you want to get either pitcher? The price tags are interesting.
The price tags are interesting. Scott Kazmir threw 71 pitches in 4 innings his last time out. I don't think it's really necessary to go there, given that you have not only Pivetta and Hill, but then you have, Kyle Gibson, who, while I'm not a huge Kyle Gibson fan, we at least know what he is. We have no idea what Scott Kazmir is, except for most likely not an above average pitcher. The only thing I would say is he's cheap, and it's a very good matchup against the Diamondbacks in a very good park for pitching, but it just doesn't strike me as the type of slate that I need to get there. Bumgarner on the other side at 6,300, not a pitcher that I like to roster, but that is a really cheap price tag for him in San Francisco. Still not something I think I end up prioritizing, but I mean, we have him with a 9% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 3.7% ownership. Similarly, you have Kazmir with a 9.4% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 7.5% ownership. Both of these guys are fine in the same way that like Edward Cabrera is fine, I think. You're not particularly confident in them pitching well, but they are inexpensive. They're not getting much ownership. If you're stacking the Twins, you're stacking the Red Sox, you're doing something like that, it makes sense to roll the dice on these guys as opposed to the pitchers that everyone else is rostering, because there is at least a path to success for them at cheap price tags.
Nick Valentine with the super chat said, sorry, joined late. Any news on Shane Bieber still being on a pitch counter limit? 34 pitches last game in his first start back from IL, looking at over 4.5 Ks. I can tell you this, Shane Bieber over 4.5 Ks is the number one strikeout prop in our player prop tool. 29% expected ROI on that Bieber number. It is, I believe, plus 122 right now. I have Bieber at 4.2 strikeouts. So I think there's some viability there given the line, but I don't have any particular news on pitch counter limit.
Yeah, so as far as a specific pitch count, I don't have anything. All I know is that he threw the 34 last time out. There's absolutely no reason for the Indians to push him here. They are 13 and a half games out of first. Can't make that up in a weekend. So, there's no reason to think that Bieber is just like going out here and giving you any semblance of a normal start. Maybe they give him like 50 pitches instead of 34, but I feel pretty confident that he's going to be extremely limited still.
And for Bumgarner and Kazmir, I didn't get to anything really below Pivetta. It just didn't seem like it was totally necessary. It's easier to get low-owned bats and draw your line in the sand at Pivetta.
Yeah, I think I think that makes sense. It's basically just the way I view them is very similar to the way I view Cabrera, where I'm not and even Kyle Gibson, if I don't have those guys in a tournament, I will be perfectly fine. I also know it means I probably don't have the Red Sox and I probably don't have the Twins.
Yep, exactly. From a bats side here, the Giants are my number 4 stack. They are properly owned, I guess we could say, but they are certainly a priority for me. They are one of the teams that I would like to be over the field on for today.
Yeah, I always like getting to the Giants. I'm never really opposed to taking hitters against Bumgarner. They have a lot of right-handed power. The only negative here, I think, really is the park, and that's always the negative for San Francisco. Bumgarner this year, a 190 expected ISO against righties, 18.7% strikeout percentage. Lots of power on the Giants. Wilmer Flores, only 2,900 on DraftKings, really stands out. Austin Slater, most likely leading off at 3K. Some pinch hit risk there, but still a good price tag. Flores, though, probably not, or I assume wouldn't be pinch hit for anyway, since Brandon Belt is injured. I think you just kind of get Flores playing a lot of games now.
Diamondbacks bats, on the other hand, probably not going to I can't even talk. Probably not going to get there with any sort of volume. I think Rojas, Marte, Varsho at the top look solid enough given the spot. But it's the Diamondbacks in San Francisco. What are we doing here?
It's the thing is, like, you can certainly make the case for taking hitters against Scott Kazmir, since there's a pretty good chance Scott Kazmir isn't any good, but it's not like the Giants are going to give him a super long leash here or something. If he's pitching poorly, they're going to just go to their bullpen. So, maybe the Diamondbacks start out hot and then it's just like, now we're done. So they're cheap, but that's not as much of a concern on this slate since there's not a ton of pitching I want to pay up for. I think Carson Kelly is a pretty solid option at 3,300. I don't have a problem with Marte or Calhoun or Varsho or Rojas individually. It's just, I don't really want to stack this team up. I don't think they put me in a particularly good situation as far as what they get me in the rest of my lineup, because there's plenty of good mid-range pitching. So individually, I do like Carson Kelly. Ketel Marte's fine, although I don't remember if I was on the show with you or not, but Ketel Marte's average sprint speed this year is identical to Vladimir Guerrero, at least as of like 2 or 3 days ago. So
wasn't me, by the way.
Okay, yeah. So not a surprise that he's not stealing bases anymore. That he still can hit, but that takes away a lot of his DFS appeal.
Final game, and I'm really curious where you end up landing. Dodgers and Padres. 5.4 run implied total for the Dodgers, 3.8 for the Pods. Tony Gonsolin and Vince Velasquez. I'm not going to be getting to either pitcher, so let's start there. Do you like either one of those pitchers?
No, not particularly. Gonsolin, I think, is a decent pitcher, but he's $8,800 on DraftKings. He's coming off of a start where he threw 68 pitches in 5 innings, previously 37, 67, 55, 55. We haven't seen him throw more than 80 pitches in a game since July 24th, which was like 6 or 7 appearances ago. So it's just a price tag I can't get to, expecting him to be limited.
So obviously the Dodgers bats look really good here, because they're the Dodgers and they're taking on Vince Velasquez. They grade out really highly for me. They are absolutely a team that I would like to have some of. They might be a little over-owned for me. I might find some other spots, but clearly I like the Dodgers. I have the Padres popping today, and I'm really curious your thoughts there.
Gonsolin's, I get it because the Padres do have talent in their offense, but I do think Gonsolin's a decent enough pitcher. I'm not really looking to target 4 to 5 innings of him, followed by, essentially a bullpen game. For the season, he has struck out 27.7% of hitters as a starter. He walks guys, but about 1 home run per 9 innings, 4.54 xFIP. I'm never going to like shy away from Tatis or tell somebody not to play Cronenworth or Machado, but overall, I have trouble getting to the Padres. Definitely very interested in the Dodgers, though.
So you would rather get to the Yankees or the Rays than the Padres?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Like, I see though all three of those teams as fairly similar. The Padres line is a bit lower, pretty comparable to the Rays at this point. But
I think they're similar. I just slightly prefer those teams.
Other than Tatis getting 20% ownership, like there's just no ownership here. So I do like the idea. If I'm going to target Dodgers, like Gonsolin's the guy I want to target. Not that he's bad or anything like that,
Sure.
but every other day it's just some other Cy Young Award winner.
Yeah, I do. I think the Padres are in that same boat as those other teams. I just prefer the Braves, the Astros, the Rays, the Yankees, the Jays.
All right. Talk to me about the Dodgers then. Anything interesting standing out to you?
So ownership wise, I think it's worth noting that Trey Turner is pulling 22% on DraftKings. Next highest is Mookie at 13. Below at 6% or below, we have AJ Pollock, Max Muncy, Justin Turner, and Chris Taylor. So this is one of those teams where there are some guys pulling a lot of ownership, Trey Turner in particular. But when you consider the position that he plays, it makes sense why he's getting that much ownership, and it's probably deserved. As a full stack, you still can get relatively low owned. So I do like getting to them. Velasquez has not been good this year. It's clearly a very good Dodgers offense. 218 expected ISO allowed to righties for Velasquez, 200 to lefties. I just like getting to the Dodgers. I think that the 5-man stack in this situation actually ends up being somewhat contrarian. Whereas if you're just like one-offing the Dodgers, you're going to be doing the same thing as everyone else, throwing in some Trey Turner, throwing in some Mookie, throwing in some Will Smith. Whereas if you grab all 5, it's going to put you in a little bit more contrarian position.
Anything else for this slate?
I don't think so.
Well, then that will do it. Deep dive coming out a little bit later.
Yep.
There we go, everybody. Stay tuned. NFL matchup show coming up next. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you to Jock Market for being the presenting sponsor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell on your way out the door. Win some money tonight, everybody. Good luck. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.